Thank you. Once again, the title suggested was Urbanization and Rights of Soil. So I'm going to begin with agriculture. And a quotation from Daniel Webster. Let us not forget that the cultivation of earth is the most important labor of man. When tillage begins, other arts will follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of civilization. And I think that is very much true now as it was before. And this farming began what we call Neolithic revolution, when the domestication of crops began about 10 to 14,000 years before present. And with gradual intensification of farming, the population of the world increased from about 6 million at that time to 120 million by 1000 BCE. And with more people, societies became more sophisticated and more complex. In river valleys, Tigris, Euphrates, Nile, Indus, Wang, larger and denser settlements emerged, which now we call hydric civilizations. So agriculture was the foundation of those civilizations. Indus Valley is one of that civilization, and my original place of birth happened to come right in this place where the Harappa Mohenjo-daro cities were located between 3300 BC and about 1300 BC. What were the features of this civilization? Dense population, agriculture-based economy, social hierarchy, division of labor, specialization, centralized governments, monuments, record keeping, language, writing, and complex systems of beliefs. And these cities had their own environment, therefore, as they developed, manipulating the surrounding environment because of deforestation, extracting firewood, stones, etc., materials for building, timber, and essential resources, food and water. Consequently, the microclimate and mesoclimate, and eventually the climate was also altered, and there's a strong evidence to that. And these civilizations are also prone to drought and flood and some of the catastrophic things, including the epidemics, which in our society now has been transformed into pandemic. But this was ever since the urbanization began. Global urbanization was 2% in 1800 when Malthus was concerned with the increase in population, 14% in 1900, 30% in 1950, 50% in 2008, 60% in 2030, 66 in 2050, and be 84% in 2100. And the impact of this drastic urbanization on the environment and on natural resources is very drastic. Mega cities, city of more than 10 million, about 3 in 75, 10 in 1919, 16 in 2000, 28 in 2015, 31 in 2016 now, about 35, 37 will be 2025, 41, 15 2050, 17 2075. There'll be 83 mega cities in 2100. The largest of those will be Lagos, Nigeria, with a population of more than 85 million. Urban land use is increasing because of the highways in the United States. Urbanization 400% from 6 to 24 million hectares since 1945, account for 3% of the total land. Each kilometer of interstate highway roughly increases 120 hectares of suburban growth. That's normally the estimate. This urbanization requires 40,000 hectares to provide accommodation and infrastructure to 1 million people. This year, 83 million is the increase in population. That will take 3.3 million hectares of productive land within the peri-urban area to go under seal and urbanization. By 2020, as I mentioned, there will be 35 cities, more than 10 million people, and each city of 10 million people requires 6,000 tons of food per day. Imagine the amount of nutrients coming into the city, most cases under developing conditions being a liability because of not proper recycling, but they can be a major asset if used properly. and through urban agriculture that I'll come back to in a moment. Right now, agriculture is under threat from urban encroachment and climate change. About 60% of the world's cropland lies in close proximity to cities, and it is at risk of encroachment and contamination pollution because of urbanization. The annual rate of urban encroachment I already mentioned, maximum is about 3.3 million hectares, some estimate 1.6. So let's say about 2.5 million hectares per year. Globally, the crop yields that were lost are responsible for 3 to 4% of the world crop production during 2010s. That brings us to the point of soil. And I was talking to Tatiana, that beautiful slide she had, and I told her I'll show her something which is kind of the same idea, but not as good. Soil is really a life. It's a living thing. And Charles Kellogg from USDA stated very nicely, there can be no life without soil and no soil without life. They have evolved together. And I'm going to take a liberty and go one step further, and that is rhizosphere, that the nanoscale root-soil interface is the only place in the universe which we know where the death is resurrected into life. That's the only place which has the divine power of converting death into life. So bring me to the topic of soil health, because that is what really we are talking about, life, which is the soil's capacity as a dynamic and biologically active entity within natural and managed landscape to sustain multiple ecosystem services such as net primary productivity, food and nutritional security, biodiversity, water purification and renewability, carbon sequestration, air quality, atmospheric chemistry, elemental cycling for both human well-being, but more importantly, nature conservancy. Nature functioning depends on soil health. We, of course, human, are part of nature. The pandemic, unfortunately, has disrupted both food production and supply chains very drastically. In addition to 700 million recent estimate of food insecure people compared with the 815 that was last year, the pandemic has exacerbated the undernutrition of another 80 to 130 million people by the end of 2020. Therefore, local food and supply sources, I'm referring to the urbanization, must be strengthened and made resilient through urban agriculture. The importance of urban agriculture, therefore, can never ever be overemphasized. It's so essential, especially in a situation like this. Urban agriculture can take many forms: home gardens, gardens in boxes in balcony of your apartment. This could be roof agriculture. Many places you see that in Europe. In Paris, I saw many places, Christian. It could be greenhouses on the roof. This is at Ohio State, the one that you see on the right and lower part of the slide. Planting and harvesting crops in empty lots. And we do have quite a lot of them, such as Youngstown, Ohio, which was kind of depopulated after the World War. Abandoned city space. Unfortunately, these are contaminated by heavy metals, but we know how to take care of them, and we must. And we should try to recycle the gray and black water. Gray and black water is the water which is used by human population in the urban center. We are also thinking about vertical farms. The idea here is being the source of critical ecosystem services for human well-being and nature. It is essential to make a judicious management of soil integral to addressing any global issues beyond food and fuel. It is critical to objectively consider how we produce, store, process, transport, and consume our food, and manage the byproducts of agroecosystem in ways that spare the land for nature. Spare the land for nature. Never ever think about bringing more land under agriculture. Spare, return some back to nature. Maximize the use efficiency of inputs and minimize the environmental footprint. The importance of other uses of soils beyond food and fuel must never be overemphasized. Cannot be. Therefore, vertical farming, glass buildings, there are examples in the US, They can produce food year-round, no losses due to extreme weather, low fossil fuel consumption of harvest, transport, refrigeration, low use of pesticides and herbicides, less water use, safe crops without contamination, low wastage, and of course, no soil degradation. So returning some land therefore back to nature. At this point, I come to the one subject I had in my title, rights of soil. Living entity, whether it's a bald eagle, whether it's a monarch butterfly, whether it's a panda, whether it's any other living organism which have a right to live, soil must also have right to be protected, restored, and thrive and managed judiciously. Simply because you own a piece of land does not necessarily mean you can do with it what you wish. US EPA has soil, Clean Water Act. It has a Clean Air Act. I wonder whether you can ever have clean water and clean air without having healthy soil. This is about the time that we thought about a farm bill having healthy soil act. Therefore, it's like a stool. Agricultural sustainability, which really depends on protecting the soil, and therefore the three components of the environment, water, air, and soil, through policy implementation intervention can really be protected, and all through those three factors improved. Being the source of critical services, I'm repeating that again at the end, spare the land for nature. Let us find soil-less solutions so that agriculture can, through hydroponic, aquaponics, aeroponics, aquaculture, use those so that the precious finite soil resources can be saved and preserved. And in that, urban agriculture obviously plays a very, very important role. Tatiana, thank you for the opportunity to talk, and I hope there is a time for one or two questions.